Well, this explains much, but let's just go into it. I have a point to make in this, at the end of all of this. She, it is true. I've noticed how often have I been in a situation where I'm trading messages with somebody who's clearly, basically texting a guy, getting frustrated that he's not texting her back and everything, and yet, since I'm the one there, I'm supposedly less interesting. Because she can have me, but she can't have him, and so he's supposedly the more interesting one. Whatever, you know. In actuality, he's got so many emotional wounds and everything that have turned him into the emotionally unavailable person who's psychologically damaged and should be a red flag that makes me actually the more valuable one. But whatever, your psychology, your biology is lying to you. But well, whatever, listen to it.
I think there are two types of emotionally unavailable people. The first type is someone who is so focused that they can't even prioritize their emotions. They don't even know how they
So
feel.
somebody
They're
that's
too
so
busy,
so
too
somebody that's so caught up in work that, yeah.
busy doing what they gotta do. The second type of emotionally unavailable is someone who's aware. They're aware of how they feel. They're not too busy to be focused on what they're doing, but they're just neglecting it. They're neglecting communicating it. They're neglecting even facing how they feel. So the unavailability is more intentional on that type. So being emotionally unavailable is not necessarily a terrible, bad thing.
I would beg to differ, but we'll get into it.
When we say emotionally unavailable men, a lot of women see that as a negative notation and they
Because
think
it
it's something to run
objectively is a negative notation, and you're errant to think otherwise. This is just an error in thinking.
away from. But in reality, it's exactly what we run to.
I will
Women
prove the point.
love
I will prove my point at the end of this video.
emotionally unavailable men simply because we're so emotional. You might think that we want a guy to express our emotions to and for the guy to express his emotions to us. In a perfect world, right? Yes. But the thing is, as soon as we start expressing our emotions to these men and to a man, we want to have these strong emotions still. We don't want these emotions to be put away, right? We don't want a man to necessarily feel for us. We want a man to give us solutions. We want a man to think in his own perspective. And
Well, honestly, I do often, because we are wired to solve problems rather than just listen, but some of us do both.
not in our perspective. Because you want to know why? The emotion that we feel that you might think we want to be reciprocated, that emotion will weaken. It will weaken. And that's not a good thing because we're emotional women. Women are so emotional. We need emotion. We need it. And a man that is not as emotionally
That's strange. I'm very good. You would be surprised at how talented I am ultimately at the thing is, I've got a psychological quirk myself. I hate being numb. I hate it. Like I fucking hate it. You have no idea. I will go out of my way to stimulate my own emotions by doing just about anything, even if it's becoming absolutely sad or whatever, and amplify the shit out of it because I do not want to be numb. I hate it. Like more than being sad, more than being anything at all. There's no state of being that I hate more than being numb. All right, that's the quirk. But I'm good at dragging other people into it with me.
available will give room for this woman to feel how she wants to feel without a man getting in the way of that. Literally. A woman wants to feel how she wants to feel, whether it's good, bad, whatever it is, if she's expressing it to you, you're a lucky man because she's being vulnerable. She's, giving herself to you. She's expressing, that's a vulnerability in a woman. And we don't
I do have that luck then.
necessarily want the same vulnerability for men. We want just enough. Just enough, meaning we want you to just listen. Listen. Just listen. You don't have to feel. You don't have to be presently emotionally available per se, but just listen to us. Listen to us, let us get it out, and let us feel it. Let us feel angry. Let us feel happy. Let us feel excited. Whatever we're feeling. We don't necessarily need you to be available for that. So when we want
I am listening.
these emotionally unavailable men, there's two types. There's two types. And women can get confused by it. And men, since men are not as equipped in the emotional arena. I mean, I know men know emotions. You're a human. But I'm saying where you can actually prioritize it and really feel the emotion. Really feel happy, really feel excited, really feel angry, really feel these strong emotions. There's two types. And women want the focus type. We want a man who is so focused on his life that he can't even prioritize his emotions. And that's not a bad thing, okay? I
Again,
think a man that
I would beg to differ that it is actually a bad thing. But we're gonna keep listening until we get to the point of this
is
video.
very strong in how he feels, even if he feels like, if he feels upset, negative emotions, if he feels these negative emotions and he's not necessarily letting it out, that's a very strong man, okay? That's a very, very strong man. A very emotionally unavailable man that becomes angry, becomes mad, very hostile. That's what we want. We want a man that can control.
That Let me put it like this. I have anger myself. You know, I use it to get shit done at times.
That, the negative ones, because that's all we care about. We care about the negative emotions. The happy emotions, excitement, yeah, everyone feels that. But I'm saying when it comes to relationships, we want that upper hand with emotions. We don't want a man to set all of the emotions. We don't
Well,
want him
that makes sense, but still.
controlling the room with his emotions. That's too much for a woman. In
Hmm. You know, I see.
my opinion, it's too much for a woman to manage not only her emotions, but to also navigate the man's emotions. Because we're so in tune with how we feel. We know exactly how you feel. And that's exactly why we want an emotionally unavailable man. Not that we want it, but we prefer it. Because we know we can help you. We know we can help you with emotions. Like, we are so confident in our own emotions that if you're unavailable for yours, trust me, we will be there for you. We will help you understand your emotions because it comes easy for us. It comes easy. When a man is not too available, but when a man is available for his emotions, it can be a bit confusing for a woman. It can be a bit confusing because if we want to feel how we want to feel and you're feeling how you want to feel, that's a clash. That's clashing. There's no yin and yang there. It's just a bunch of like, I feel like this, I feel like this. There's no real mutual agreement, compromise. There's no understanding, listening. an actual reciprocation.
But there's a problem with all this, okay?
Even if, right,
We can create a balance, but there is still a problem.
two people feel different feelings and they get over it, they both get over it, there's always going to be something that will set someone else off. Everyone has a limit. Everyone has an emotional capacity. Everyone. So, for women, our capacity is much smaller, I believe, than a man. A man can have a larger capacity when he's putting up with his emotions. I mean, I'm not differentiating completely like it's black or white. No, I'm just saying women in general, we feel lots of emotions every day, every month, every week. And we just know that we can help men. At least in my world.
Well, that happens because you look at it like this. The culture lets you have feelings. It never shames you for it. It never, you don't get punished for it. We do, you know? So they try to force us in down this to box everything up, but that's toxic and it has catastrophic consequences. Anyways, let's keep going.
I know I can help a man with his emotions if he's not currently available for his own. And yeah,
Let me put it in this when it comes to me, despite the fact that I've put so much of myself out there at this point, I feel like a lot of it was driven by a desire to reverse engineer a way to understand my own feelings. Because I feel like despite how much I've let out, I feel at the same time like there's a lot that I don't understand about my own.
when a man is focused, that's all a woman really wants. Because at the end of the day, when we are
Yeah, but you don't know where we might put that focus. You know that, right? We may just be blowing it on video games.
trying to express our emotions to our man, we want to feel heard, and then we also want to provide emotion for the man. If the man is talking about his day and there's not much emotion about it, but he's just logically talking about his day. Oh, I did this, I did that, step by step. Maybe he's doing little dips and dabs of how he feels. The woman is going to express how she feels about her man's day, which in return makes the man more available to his own emotions. And I think that's the balance in being emotionally available as a man. You don't need to be fully available. Please don't be, because then you're just a woman. You know what I mean? You can be available for your emotions as a man. But to be fully available, do you even know what that means? Do you know what that means? I don't think you really know what that means. It takes a very strong, vulnerable part of you to be able to witness these emotions and let them pass and actually feel them. So I think probably the strongest emotions that men actually do feel are the angry and mad ones. You know, you always hear that a man has anger issues and a man's always has a temper.
I do. I absolutely do.
But some men aren't introduced to emotional women. And I think that's what creates the balance. So, yeah. Of course, women love emotionally unavailable men because we're so emotional. We're too emotional. We need someone to balance it out. And in return, we help you because emotions is our forte. It's our specialty. Whereas solutions and logic can be your specialty. If we're upset about something, we want solutions. We want solutions more than you just having your own emotion about it. Seriously. Seriously. I know in my own life, I've talked to a guy and a guy would give me a solution. And usually I don't want the solution because I just want to feel. Women, we don't want the solution right then and there. We want to just feel. So it seems like you can't give us the solution, but I'm telling you, it's better than giving us some emotion about it or some like, oh, that's stupid. Oh, you're mad about this at work. Oh, that's dumb. Oh, like just matching our energy, just mirroring our emotions. We don't want that. We want a man to be like, why? You can do this instead. Don't think like that. That's okay. This is going to be like this. No, solution based. We can feel our emotions still, but we're also able to disconnect you from it. If you're connected to it too much, the feeling doesn't feel like ours anymore. We're very selfish when it comes to our emotions. Only we can feel it. Only we want to feel it. If we're upset about something at work, we don't want you to be upset about what we're upset about. You can hear us out, but there's no need to feel for us, you know? There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place, different scenarios, different situations.
Well, it does
But I'm
decomplicate
talking
things.
the broad scheme of things. And we want an emotionally unavailable man. Not in the most extreme way though. Not in the type 2 way. The type 2 way is someone who's intentionally neglecting their emotions. Nobody should be doing that. No one should be intentionally neglecting.
We've still got a
Now, if you are
problem with all
neglecting it
this.
through discipline, focus, and actually doing something and being busy, great. I
Yeah, but I've got a question. What do you want me to be busy doing? Like that's because that leaves everything open in complete headspace, because it could be anything there. Anything could go in that box. That's the whole problem where like your logic kind of disconnects from mine. I start asking this question, because this guy could be completely focused and consumed by his hobbies. He's not doing anything productive with his time. He's just completely consumed by his own interest in everything. And there's a danger that I would slip into that zone. I would do that just to create the illusion of being completely unavailable. You know, like I've got focus now, but I'm just fucking playing video games, reading books, and you know, like totally not engaged with anything that brings in money.
feel like you can catch up. You can always catch up to how you feel. You can always bring yourself back to how you are supposed to feel. Especially if you're with an emotional woman. A woman will always be like, "Hey, check yourself. I know you're upset," or "I know this, I know this." Like, women are in tuned. So we can navigate emotions. We don't need an overly emotional man to help us with that. And that's just my opinion. So,
I don't. I really don't think I'm overly emotional myself, but I've got feelings.
yeah, I think we'd rather deal with emotions alone than involving a man because eventually we lose connection. We lose connection to how we're supposed to feel with the man. And yeah, it's all about balance, yin and yang. I hope this helps you, and I hope, if you have any questions about this actually, like leave some questions in the comments or email me, lowteenkira@gmail.com.
The only reason why I got into this topic myself was I was starting to notice that all the time, quite often I would be, engaging with somebody and talking to them and chatting them up, and they'd be chasing after a guy that was just basically blowing them off, for the most part. He wasn't interested. And, it was like, why are women constantly doing this? It's like every time I, get myself into these like minor conversations with somebody that's a little bit interesting, maybe they're not like, it's not like super, super strong or anything attracted. It's just kind of a crush, but it's not really anything like really special. It's just kind of there's an attraction. And it becomes very clear, very, very quickly that they're engaged with somebody else and they're waiting for the guy to text them back, but he's not fucking calling, and everything. I've got, everyone tries to explain this like, oh, it's the allure of the unavailable, of like unattainable, but like I don't operate that way. So there's like a fundamental inability to like really fully understand why people do this. Like, okay, there's somebody that I would probably, Pokemon, for example, totally out of reach for somebody like me. Like I couldn't even get this girl to reply, and everything. But she is interesting. I will say, there was some, at least before all the recent like controversies blew up in her, she was kind of attractive. She was cute, but and similar politics and all that other stuff. But she's got like fucking an army of like 5 billion Sims. Totally, totally unobtainable for somebody like me. I could like I probably couldn't even get her to reply if I started sending her messages. So what do I do? How do I manage that? I don't even try. You know. And then there's the person who tries to put themselves in a situation where they like deliberately engineer themselves to be just out of reach with me and everything. That person who's manipulating and everything to be like just enough. I'm manipulation sensitive as well. It's like trying to bullshit a bullshitter. I pick up on it, and it may like depending, on how badly and how strongly I want the person. I may just, basically because I sense the manipulation, decide to shove them away at that point, totally disconnect because I know what they're doing, you know? And I tend to resent it when people try to manipulate me and I pick up on it. Quite often when it's been done to me in the past, it's been rather irritating and annoying because it's like I'm onto your game. I know what you're doing. I wish you would stop. Because it's not funny. I know exactly how this ends and everything, and it's stupid. You think it's, you know, uh, it's just, it's a stigmatism. She's basically told me how she feels, so, and I'm not overwhelming her with my own, so. But the thing that I wanted to say about how this was like objectively a bad thing, like emotional suppression and mortality over a 12-year follow up and everything. So, a lot of people haven't seen this study, and, as a consequence, I should, for later on and everything. But, the results are really the only part that we need, or the conclusion really, that we need to understand is that may convey emotional suppression may convey risk for earlier death, including death from cancer. Further work is needed to understand the biophysiological mechanism for this risk, as well as the nature of associations between suppression and other different forms of mortality. Sorry, yeah, misreading. Here, it's easy to do. You just assume you've seen it a bunch of times, and then you misread it. It's close enough. Anyways, yeah, minor correction and everything, but no, they found that there was a significant connection between you know, uh, cardiovascular disease, cancers, and all kinds of, causes of early death and emotional suppression and everything. And so if a man is, severely, you know, let's assume that this is like a real like the guys that go and do the work that really gets men burnt out rather after a while, and they go and throw themselves into like their job and their role, and they work their ass off and everything, and they never express their feelings, they never let any of that stuff out, and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going and bottling and bottling and bottling and everything. Well, this takes a toll on a human's health. So if a man is too unavailable to his own emotions, eventually it's going to catch up to him. You understand that, right? It'll be a cascade of terrible, consequences that happen, and he may die early as a result. It pretty dramatically raises the risk, for a person to do this, to suppress this, just to focus on their whatever, and there's another a bit of like when women talk about this and they say this and focus, and everything, what like I guess what I wanted to say is that I can totally focus on my life, but my life may just be like me playing Final Fantasy 11, and everything and blowing things off. I mean, I spent my 20s doing that, and everything. I mean, I could be totally focused on, complete bullshit that isn't even, you know, uh, bettering my circumstances or improving them in any way, shape, or form, and that can create a lot of focus. I mean, I probably wouldn't have been available to you at all if you hadn't been a player of the game back in like back in that period of time, where I was playing for like 10 years and everything, and I can totally throw myself into my hobbies to such an extent where I am focused and everything, but on my own life, but then I'm not even, you know, I don't know, putting my focus towards economic activities that are, you know, making us both better off, and everything, which I would think would probably be where you would want my focus to be, you know. Shit, that was not great. But anyways, that's a study that came out a number of years ago, and yeah, I mean, do you see me? Do you see me with any interest in this person? Because of the fact that I know that there's an army of like 5 billion Sims, like millions of Sims basically chasing after her at the same time. You know, why would I even bother as a consequence? As a result, I'm kind of rather immune to this allure of the unattainable. It doesn't really have a powerful, you know, grip over me, and scared of having delusions and never having another friend, and everything. Is what she says. So, anyways, yeah, generally people shouldn't be suppressing their feelings. It doesn't work, and it works out pretty terribly for the people who do it. So, I mean, depending, on this guy and how suppressed he is, you could be basically chasing after a man that's 1 foot in the grave, and everything because of this. Men need to let it out too.